The plan from the beginning was to take on the hardest and the largest action scenes right off the bat.
The freeway got the most attention because it was by far the most complicated.
Smash, you guys give us your best shot for this little, so it's
It's very rare that you get a mile and a half of free and clear road that you can just, you know, whip cars around.
The script called for, a freeway sequence, and originally we were going to go to Akron, Ohio. In the end, it was better to actually build our own freeway. And given it's the Matrix, the fact that we're trying to control the visual image, if we want to exclude trees, we needed to build a freeway that would give us like a mask.
We had an incredibly talented stunt coordinator on this, R.A. Rondell. He was able to craft a very complicated car chase and bike chase, and then he was able to work with the boys to bring the visual effects elements into it.
The whole freeway was pretty much run by the stunt department to an extent. We came up with a realistic pattern of 50 miles an hour on the background traffic and anywhere from 60 to 70 miles an hour on the chase vehicle, so they're always overtaking the traffic. It wasn't chips on the freeway pattern where everybody was exactly placed at one distance or another for a weaving pattern. We tried to make it feel a little bit different. What do you see on the freeway? People tailgating, throwing an arbitrary truck, a bus. It's a teamwork between the stunt department, the precision drivers, and the background players that are here.
road rage. You really have that? I get it. I use it all the time.
The freeway people, that's the name for this.
They all think I'm crazy, but hey, come from my family, probably would be too.
Pictures up, stand by.
In the very beginning, when we were still first doing the concepts, there's a written word, there's a storyboard, there's a concept, and then you've got the previs. We designed something on the computer that was amazing.
The brothers go into a pre-visualization mode. Because of that, they can put the camera anywhere, really. We try to figure out ways to come up with that same sort of shot in the real world.
Part of the chase sequence happens on a truck top. Obviously, you can't shoot a kung fu fight on top of a truck going down a freeway at 60 miles an hour. So we decided to shoot it inside and simulate the travel.
I'll try. You'll get it. You'll get it. I believe in you. You'll get it.
A lot of times you can put WD-40 down on the tires, and when you spin the tires, you can get a nice white smoke.
Spent a lot of time getting through a lot of rounds with my machine gun. And I wasted a lot of people on the freeway, which is fantastic.
During the freeway chase sequence with the twins, we went with an H&K UMP. We put a sight rail on top of it here, and then we've taken an M203 grenade launcher and put on to the front of the weapon. Runs extremely well. It's a fantastic weapon.
It's like 700 rounds a minute, and it's got a flame that shoots out of it that far at the front. That's just amazing to use that.
One of my favorite things that I did in the film, and I got in one take, which was very exciting for me, was my sliding 90 into camera. Yeah, I think they call it a juicy lift. It's all about brake and handbrake and sliding and hitting your mark and starting the turn at the right point.
I had to take a car where I had a camera in it and run up alongside her at 50, 60 miles an hour and slam into the side of her and rub fenders with her down the freeway and stuff. She hung right in there.
That was pretty awesome.
Wow. Her driving ability was phenomenal, but I want her to basically think about acting.
The way we decided to do it was partially with Carrie-Anne, who was Trinity, and also we had a Trinity motorbike double.
Yeah.
What's back there next?
Debbie Evans, a double Trinity. You know, she's a 3-time national trials bike champion. And I've worked with her for over 25 years in cars, motorcycles, whatever. She's by far the best there is.
Why are you chasing Trinity?
You know, I don't know.
Being able to pull off what we called Event 3 was a big deal for me.
The roles that R.A. Rondell put together for that smash up, those beautiful sort of cars going like this in the background.
2 cannon rolls in it, 2 dragging pipe ramps, 2 T-bones, and a jackknifing truck, all in the same 250 feet of the freeway, all at 60 miles an hour.
We had that rigged with a pneumatic cannon, hood crush, fender blow, bumper flew out, windows blew, and then it flipped over. We also had Trinity's car rigged with a hood crush and a suspension drop, because that agent will obviously be a virtual one. They had to get that timing down, as well as the 9 accidents happening behind it with 7 cameras.
It's really about what's happening in the foreground and the destruction and carnage that happens beyond it. And because it's in the background, all the height of the cars had to be big.
What makes it better is it's real.
Yeah. You can tell it's real, too.
Does anyone think the sheen on his shoe is a tiny bit hot? Okay, fine. Shoot it out.
This was one of the shots where they wanted to take bullet time one step further. So they knew it was going to be a virtual shot, I think, from the beginning.
These trucks are real. Up until this point, it's got the major virtual cinematography challenge, the major virtual background challenge, and the virtual humans.
That's perfect. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Been working on this thing for a year and a half?
Yeah. It's probably going to be one of the most expensive shots in the movie.
I understand they donated the wood to recycle for an organization that recycles, and that really made me happy.
There was a lot of lumber in 1.5 miles of flattage on 2 sides, so there was 3 miles of kind of flattage. Really good timber and plywood and everything like that.
Actually giving it to Mexico, I believe, where they can use it to actually help build.
They were used for low-income family housing.
So I thought that was great that they were actually putting it to good use.
We were 60 days in San Francisco. 48 of those days were dedicated solely to the freeway chase.
So is that a long time to shoot a single scene?
A sequence? Yeah. I'd have to say it was.
There was a sequence in the freeway chase where Trinity picks up the key maker and they've got a bike going against traffic. So what we did is we had this incredible stuntwoman named Deb who we literally drove against the traffic.
They needed a girl who could ride one of the Ducati 996s really well. and that would be what I'm known for. I started riding motorcycles when I was 6 years old, and I started competing when I was 9. The first movie I worked on, I had to jump a 30-foot ravine on a motorcycle.
You couldn't ask for a better person to be in charge of the bike, Debbie. She rides all kinds of motorcycles. She's an extensive car driver. I've worked with her for over 20 years, so there's a certain comfort level I had with her right off the bat.
I can be, at that speed, I can be right up in there.
Okay. One thing to have all that metal around you in a roll cage and stuff like that, but Debbie on the Ducati with Will Leong on the back, nothing around him, no helmets, doing it against oncoming traffic was hair-raising. And I feared for them all the time.
Also, that was like part of a visual effects sequence where we wanted to have some, close calls with trucks and cars that would come too close, and some very complicated virtual camera moves where the camera would actually go underneath the truck.
The nature of the way the stunt, choreography works is that, believe it or not, Debbie would rather have cars to aim at.
So it's two cars.
To help her, orient herself.
We had some cars coming at her, and then we also had some markers on the ground which would represent down the freeway where certain cars would be at a certain time. So that was all mapped out on pre-visualization. Then RA and Deb and all the stunt drivers got out there and they practiced with her driving against the traffic.
Why don't you just line this up on this road here for a second and walk through it? Right. So you know where it is?
No.
So Debbie knows where it is? So
I loved cutting in and out of the traffic and just laying the bike down sideways. Sometimes we were doing 65 through traffic, just cutting, making hard cuts, and I really enjoyed that.
Being able to pull off what happened on the previs was a big deal for me. The motorcycle rig with Debbie was amazing. I mean, in and out of the traffic with the Keymaker double on the back, totally amazing, blew everybody's mind.
Is that a rehearsal?
I must admit, seeing someone drive at, 40 mile an hour into cars coming at you, was a pretty scary experience. But she was like solid the whole time. She was an incredible driver. Never seen anything like it, and she would do it over and over again. Come back, would you like me to go a bit closer? Let me go a bit closer.
When you start a race or something, you get those butterflies. The same thing happens when you do stunts. It's the adrenaline kicking in.
This setup is Merovingian garage, and he has a Cadillac collection. So we basically needed to get some 18 Cadillacs that were in pretty good condition. The Cadillac Club of New South Wales are all very helpful people. They're all fanatics, and they all have their cars in pretty good condition. And they're all very keen to get in the Matrix. This one's a 1960 Fleetwood, typical Cadillac fins. This is a 1932 Cadillac town car, it's called. It's the only one in the world that actually is on the road. There's one other in Belgium or somewhere. It's in a museum, so very valuable.
Got two drive wheels. It's funny, huh?
We cheated a bit. We have fake steering wheels. We put in the left-hand side and cover the steering wheel on the right-hand side. And in key spots, we have left-hand drive vehicles where we'll see them. So we've got another classic Eldorado. This is the standard 1959. This one is a 72 Eldorado. We blew the windscreen in this one. We bought it, painted it, had it reupholstered, blew the window out. Oh, and the designer and Hugh, the art director, have their ideas about what they want in certain scenes. So it's really just coming up with what they see as the overall idea for the film and trying to match something to that.
What I like in the Merovingian is that it's a certain vulgarity. I love the fact that he goes for things that are a little too decorative. His house, the chateau, is really over the top. I've always wanted to come and check the sets before to see how much of a king he was, how grand he was.
We looked at all the big palaces in Europe. Like, actually most of this comes from the Hermitage. So it's over the top where they had lots of money to spend and just gild everything and make everything shiny and glisten.
We have in our culture, in our French culture, we have the immediate memory of amazingly grand places like Versailles, or the king's castles. I mean, those images are very present to our minds all the time, so that we can trigger them very easily.
So this is the Merovingian Chateau upper hallway. The designing of this was lots of references to old chateaux in Europe, looking at things like the Versailles Hall of Mirrors. Initially, it didn't seem like it needed to be very large, but these are 9 metres wide. It just kept on getting larger and larger in the detailing of all the mouldings and how we wanted it to look like marble. Also, we did research on the paintings that would look really good up on the walls and got clearances for these fantastic paintings, and they're just huge colour photocopies that we then got our set finishing department to age down to look more realistic, those little tricks of the trade. So this is a set where there's a lot more weapons. It's going back to that idea of there being warriors, Merovingian. So it's filled with weapons that are from every country of every era. That's the idea that we're trying to push right through the chateau. The actual chateau that we're filming at for the front is in the Loire Valley, and it doesn't really have a nice back door, so we had to create our own. They've taped on grout lines. It's a tape here to create all these grout lines, and then they've got a slurry of plaster which they've pushed across, and then probably another coat so that we can try and get this texture into it. And they've pulled off the tape and then got in there with extra bits to try and make it look like it's much more aged.
The flashiness of the places that he decides to surround himself with says a lot about who he is.
The statues, you'll notice that they're all the same person, and those are all the images of the Merovingian. They're all his own likeness, or they're identical. So that's another sign of his egomaniacal control. No Venuses, no Mars, it's all him.
He has quite strong, vulgar tastes, flash. He likes everything that shines. He's very much a Leo somehow, which I am too.
This mural is a symbol of the Matrix, but in sort of a Renaissance or medieval theme. This is medieval times, and there's the rest of us. This is all us humans on Earth battling it out. And then above that, we've got heaven with the angels. But the angels aren't really just angels. The angels are actually manipulating what's going on Earth. And who's at the center of heaven but Merv himself? So it's all about him. Again, he's controlling everything that's going on in heaven and everything that's happening on Earth. So this is another analogy for the Matrix, where we all think that we're in control of what's going on here on Earth, but actually there's a whole other system in place where we're being manipulated. We looked at a lot of marble floors, a lot of floors in Venice, and again, just throughout the classic palaces of Europe, because that's the imagery that we as Westerners, that's where our heritage comes from, to think of those are the people who've been ruling us all this time. And that's what we're working on now, is designing a rubber floor so that the stunt guys can fall on that, but that it still looks like marble. So we're about to unroll the marble on top of the rubber. Or the vinyl marble on top of the rubber on top of the wood marble.
So do you want to just bring that one back so that it will line up with this line here?
So Niobe, don't get too carried away, because I'll center them up over there.
And we've got to shoot it in sequence, because as they go through and they damage everything, we can't really put it all back together. So it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like in the end.
If I had imagined where he would be reigning, I would have completely agreed with the places that I have found.
Surprise.
We made, I don't know, like hundreds of rubber weapons. We just like had to keep on churning them out because every time someone would pick up a sword, they'd smash them. And all these things were molded, painted. They were quite complicated shapes.
In Chinese, we don't have those kind of weapons. So it's different, Chinese weapon and Western weapons.
Most of these weapons they just found out of books and copied out of books, out of medieval books and history books.
These things are actually placed exactly in accordance with the choreography of the fight.
We make a lot of mistakes in this fight. We end up killing each other.
What we call bottle brush with attitude.
Commonly referred to as Tiger's toothpick. Now uses this towards the end of the fight and sort of sticks it into some guy's head.
This is one of the first weapons to get broken. Brad actually leaps over the railing. Keanu kicks him right in the chest here, snaps the blade and knocks him out. Head gets bolted on this end, so and so, and take the head off onto the next breakaway pole, and so on and so forth till they get the shot.
One particular part of the fight now, he grabs this particular sword, and this ends up going through one of the bad guys who comes tumbling through this balustrade and hits the floor.
Some swords don't quite go the distance, as you can see. This one here, that Brad wears, which they wear under their costume.
I don't know if it was something I ate, but I got a huge stomachache.
It's got to remain light, but yet still be fully retractable for Keanu to use. See, this one's actually gone through set, so it's getting a bit old. Action. Three-pronged sword. Probably the most fixed weapon that I have. Fake rubber size that Marcus uses. These are genuine steel ones, which are what the other ones are moulded off. This is actually quite heavy, very dangerous. We take a copy of that, put a carbon fibre centre in it or a steel centre, and a rubber mould, which the painters then do up and make look beautiful. The soft shield's been surprisingly durable. Puts the shield in front of him, hits him with the side through there. There's a plug that you would put back into it. Painters would touch it back up again, take it back onto set. The standard trident, which they use to fight with, all rubber tipped, so it can't hurt people too much. One of the boys gets stabbed. With this one, a rig like such, which is worn around the belly. We'll go onto it, pole goes on the end, back to lying on ground dead.
Take off the...
It's all the fake blood.
Actually, the pipe is actually
really
stuck in
gross.
me. That's how we do it on the Matrix. Nothing.
Same way twice.
It's half-assed.
Real.
Don't look at me like a tiger.
I was 8 years old. I studied martial arts 20 years, almost like all my life. I've been to the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and Charlie Andrews. A lot of movies. They're all fun, especially Charlie Andrews. Yeah, you work with the three girls all the time. It's fun.
Tiger's on the first Matrix with us, and he's actually part of our wire team that puts us down and stuff.
He doesn't do anything wrong. He's like the fastest, the strongest, the quickest. He jumps the highest. Best in choreography. He's just, you're the man, Tiger.
Man.
You are the man.
X. I just eat X. Number one. Number two. I have to eat this. So I was training for weapons for like many years, over 10 years. Stunt life, most people it's a little hard. In Hollywood, stuntman is good job. But not in Hong Kong.
Shoot that! Shoot that! Shoot that! They have to shoot everything in slow motion just to see your moves.
Connect champion of the decade.
Our first shot is reaction. Get punch in the face. I just teach Keanu. We've been training together for like almost like 2 years, and I teach a lot of movie stars. And Keanu is the one work the most harder.
Want me to go lower? You can go lower with the sword.
It's good. We have a good connection. We have 6 guys. Yeah, I'm the last one to die. And all the dialogue is for acting, it was like, if they want me, okay, acting, I do it, but I think it's just for fun. I don't have a name. My name is Fighter 2.
Number 1, Tiger Chen is the best martial artist stuntman on the planet. I love you. Did I tell you I love you?
Yeah, I know.
I love you.
Yeah, we love each other.
Yes, there's a lot of love around here. A lot of love.
Cut.
The first wire photography fight we did was with Colin Chow, who is a martial artist and has been in like a series of like Hong Kong films. Matched against Keanu.
This tea house is very important for me and Neil. When I read my script, and then I will think kind of like a traditional tea house in China or in Hong Kong. Yeah, it's totally different. What I thought, this scene is very classic, beginning until the end. We are very clean and then very precise.
It's tricky stuff, the fight scenes. The moves are fast and it's tricky sometimes for operators just to follow that action.
For me, it's really exciting working with Master Wu. I mean, he's a fantastic guy to watch him choreograph all those moves, and they really can move around swiftly through a set, even attached to the wires. So for us, it's to move the camera in those sort of same movements. It's exciting.
Wu Pingyun is the first action coordinator I've ever seen. Always very nice, very gentle, always smiling.
都冇諗過呢啲嘢嘅我，即係我覺得東方演員好似 Colin 咁，佢本身動作打得好靚嘅。Keanu 嘅動作係等於係初級訓練嘅，所以我哋度呢場嗰時咧，就先定咗 Keanu 嗰動作點樣去啫，因為 Colin 本身已經係好熟悉martial art 嗰啲嘢㗎啦，先動咗嗰啲嘢，即係佢Keanu 邊樣做得最好嘅，我哋度邊樣俾佢嚟配合到Colin 嗰招數，大家啲招數配合到咧，個點樣配合得好睇，我哋就點樣去，就其他都冇乜大分別嘅，我覺得分別唔係好大，同埋東方美國嗰啲分別唔好大，因為全部都係 martial art 動作嚟㗎嘛。打嘅層次咧，我覺得應該有少少 level 嘅，大家拳來腳往啊，即係你腳嚟我腳化，我腳解你拳嚟我掌化，即係我讀個層次咧，大家有 level 嘅，即係唔會話即係高低分別到好大，即係大家都係咁高手嘅人嚟嘅，所以我讀嘅層次，大家高手如高手嗰種拳腳啊，嗰種惺惺相惜啊，即係嗰種感覺會有嘅嘛。
You can see Keanu is improved a lot from the first one because he paid a lot of time to practice.
Probably towards the end of the take, your face is getting sort of soft, it feels like. Mouth's going open, coming up. Overall, just a smooth take all the way through with power.
Action!
Cut.
Action!
Whoa!
For someone who isn't a designated martial artist, Keanu's, he's pretty incredible. And incredible on a wire, actually.
Andy and Larry, they are very intelligent. They use martial arts to let all the audience have new vision for the martial arts from the olden day kung fu movie. And it's totally different.
Set and action.
Hello, Neil. Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix.
Basically, it's a scene in which Neo meets the architect of the Matrix. It is a place that we've actually seen once before in the first movie, but only a little glimpse of it. It's implied that perhaps he was the one watching Neo during that interrogation. So here we are, back in that place.
Well, originally I went for a different part. I was told they wanted somebody to play, I don't know who it was a counselor, I think. I suddenly got a different script and was asked to read for this completely other part, which completely bamboozled me because, of course, I hadn't read the whole script. I only read the scenes that I was in, and I thought, what the hell is this? God/devil, the father of the Matrix, he says. And I thought, wow, this is good. Yeah, I can do that. I can do my cheap Orson Welles imitation and get paid for it.
This will be the 6th time we have destroyed it, and we are exceedingly efficient at it.
It's malevolent, not in a moral sense. It's malevolent in a, oh well, this formula doesn't work, let's scrub it out and try something else. It's mathematical malevolence. We shot it over a 3-day period. It was hell. Mainly because I sort of spoke virtually non-stop, and Keanu every now and then would say a reaction, but I had to kind of carry the scene in terms of the dialogue.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
It was Keanu who sort of translated for me what the brothers were trying to say, for which I will remain eternally grateful. So between the brothers and Keanu, they've taught me how to act in a way that I didn't understand before. The key was to kind of just wipe everything clean and just imagine that I was like a blank blackboard. And then it made sense. I expected the center of the Matrix to be a mathematical formula, some sort of mathematical construct, not humanized. I was very surprised that it turned out to be a person.
That was quicker than the others.
Others? How many others?
The whole belief system of being the one is shattered because I'm not the one, I'm the 6th one. So I learned that I don't know as much as I thought I did. And then I'm given the choice of humanity or Trinity. It's funny that Neo just goes for Trinity.
Neo's representing this fundamental volition, choice, decision, purpose, mission. Fighting against all odds, but he's now confronted with the embodiment, the exemplar of the determinism and the nihilism and the architect. They're having to make that choice. Love on the one hand, the alternative on the other. Man, this is rich. This is rich.
But it's that whole thing of choice and that whole thing of, I don't believe everything I hear. And I don't think that what everyone says to me, is the truth, or it has to be the truth.
That was a complicated scene which was completely shot surrounded by blue screen. And then he has a bunch of monitors all around him, like hundreds and hundreds of monitors.
The images inside the monitors, of course, we're going to shoot, but they'll be shot in a, fairly unique way so that we can do tricks of perspective on Neo, the Neos in the monitors. Some basic camera feedback loops where we can travel from the center of the environment here through monitors back into the environment and out again if we choose. It's really like a limitless number of possibilities how you could actually go in and out of the space, particularly when everything that surrounds you is computer graphics to start with, so you can do interesting things. The assignments we had for littering the screens in the background really had to do with the folly of man. We just figured it was the short history of recorded images. So we took from newsreel, World War I or II through, contemporary time, the sort of leaders and events that the audience that was watching The Matrix would be familiar with. We had leaders of all different sorts, not necessarily always evil, just those that seemed to have an effect in the world order through the 20th century. And it was just a hyper-informational delivery that really didn't matter if you really saw everything. It was really just about the architect's access to an infinity of information related to Neo's, consciousness of who he was.
Trinity.
First was the folly of man, and then it became Neo's folly and his preoccupation with Trinity and saving her, and the folly of an unreal life, a constructed life that he never led, and the fact that every moment of his life was a construction of the architect or the machinery of the Matrix. And so he was demonstrating, I suppose, to Neo that it was all an elaborate fabrication to break his will, I suppose.
Control me! I'm gonna smash you to bits! I'm gonna fucking kill you! You can't make me do anything, white prick!
When Neo has problems with deciding which way he will choose, there's a certain level of, multiple personalities and responses from multiple personalities reacting to the architect's questions. So that one way of visualizing that might be with just more individualized Neos.
The one entity is being splintered so that his internal world is becoming externalized.
Right.
So it's all about different aspects of his selfhood.
I can say whatever I fucking want! I can say whatever I want! I can say whatever I fucking want! You old white prick! You old white prick! I'll smash this place to bits! See the whole place, like, I'll smash this place to bits! I'll smash this place to bits! I'll smash this place to fucking bits! I'll smash this place to fucking bits! You can't control me! You can't control me! You can't control me! You're dead! I'm gonna fucking kill you! Fucking kill you! Fucking dead! Fuck you! And
One of the only times you'll ever get to improv for Wachowskis.
I know. I couldn't believe it. Did you see how happy Keanu the actor got?
whoa. Yeah, let's keep blowing.
For you guys, I'll do whoa with my pants off.
All right.
The Merovingian is a lineage of kings in France. The story has it that the Merovingian kings, descending from a king called Merovingian, hence the name, are descendants of Christ himself. The blood of Christ was in fact his lineage, his child, carried by Mary Magdalene, and who came to France. The people who are still nowadays in real-life society descending from those Merovingian families do believe that they can't be more aristocratic because they descend from Christ.
Bring me the eyes of the oracle, and I will give you back your savior.
It's a very, very old program. He's one of the oldest and meanest programs in the Matrix. He's really sort of one of the kings of the underworld, a personification of all forms of indulgence. And that reveals, obviously, a lot about him and his philosophy. His philosophy is causality, and basically that is the philosophy of the entire machine world, of the entire Matrix. Basically, I think he's bored. He is so much inside the system, he has understood the system completely. And like his wife, he feeds on human emotions.
And action. You can either run to the restaurant and tell my husband what I have done, or you can stay there and die.
My character in the film is Persephone. She's very elegant, very sophisticated. Persephone, in the Greek mythology, was the daughter of the king of the gods, Zeus, and the goddess of fertility, Demeter. And she was kidnapped by the king of the underworld, Hades, to be his queen. I mean, Persephone is not human, but she wants to feel human emotions. She's like a vampire. Instead of sucking blood, she sucks emotions and feelings from human beings. In English, you say, clothes don't make the man. For Persephone, it's the contrary, because the way how she dresses reveals a lot about who she is and about her personality. For me, Matrix is much more than an action movie. It's a story about love, it's a philosophy of life.
Now you know why this man looks like he does, because he sniffs water through his nose. Which must be very uncomfortable. Bless him.
Characters are so strong, but you don't need to have that many words. It's all visual with these guys.
Once your clothes are on and adorn yourself in those sunglasses, the whole effect is you can't help but be bad or be cool.
What our characters do, we kill.
Yeah, we could just have a damn good time within the Matrix. We maim, murder, kill him. The Merovingian.
He's the brain, we're the brawns.
So if he wants someone wasted, we'll go and waste them with efficiency.
Yes. And pleasure.
And pleasure. Oh yeah, we enjoy it at the same time.
I think the big emphasis on getting the part was our martial arts capabilities. We've both got extensive experience in martial arts, and we both enjoy it.
It's gonna hurt. This is a madly physical film, you know. I mean, hats off to the guys, you know, like Keanu and Carrie-Anne and Laurence. You know, they put themselves through physical hell to get the ability and the martial arts experience they have, and we've been doing it for 16 years, so and we find it hard.
Oh, Dad, I'm out of here. Shit.
That was good. We've been lazing around within the Matrix frame for God knows how long, enjoying ourselves, and then, you know, this big moment comes up, the one's there, Morpheus is there, Trinity's there, the Keymaker. This is what we've been waiting for. This is our ultimate goal, is to have this confrontation. And,
oh, didn't you go on?
Sorry. Obviously, I'll be stopping. Well, one of us has got to be the intelligent one.
Yeah, it's fair play. Yeah.
And he will kick my butt. Yeah. Right? You do. As a matter of fact, we're actually. Because if you don't, you're in big. I'm in big trouble. But as a matter of fact, you know, we will make a good combination. The Keymaker and Ancient Giant.
I'm Randall Dick Kim, and I play the Keymaker. I help the heroes. Well, I flew out to Los Angeles and auditioned for the brothers.
And action.
Oh, and I guess they liked what they saw.
Can't wait to see those days.
It was thoroughly exciting. I was jumping around the apartment. It's a brilliant set. Made my character. In many respects, made my character. It gave him a history. I mean, the imagination, the craftsmanship that went into the making of this little cell. The minute I saw it, I felt at home. I wanted to go and lay in my little bedding over there, turn on the faucet, wash my hands, you know, work this machine. It's brilliantly conceived and executed.
Action.
Well, every time I've had to do that scene, you meditate on mortality. The question about this one is, how does an old program die? What makes it different than a human dying? It's so much fun. I wish everybody could do it. I can't express the joy of it.
Hey guys.
Exhilarating. I never dreamed that in my latter years I would be doing something like this. I felt like a little kid having a big, huge adventure. It's a great honor and privilege to be a part of this modern epic.
Handsome, dazzling face there.
Papa, the train! My name is Tanvir Atwa. I'm playing Sati. I was in the scene where Colin was opening the door and bad guys were coming both ways. The line that I'm supposed to say is, I'm scared, Seraph. That's my line. I'm in the train station and I help this boy find the Matrix. His name's Neo. Good morning. He wants to go to the Matrix, but the train man doesn't let him get on the train because you have to take a train to go to the Matrix. And this is the train station. That's one of my lines.
I guess for the central characters, especially Neo, for him to get from one world to this other world, he has to go through the train man.
Down here, I make the rules. Down here, I make the threats. Down here, I'm God.
He's kind of like the ferryman crossing the River Styx. But the train man is not necessarily a very cooperative person. The stakes in this world are quite high. You know, there's drama all the time. It's been a long day.
Are you still on day for us?
I love the abstract nature of these films. I love the fantasy nature of these films. They deal with our psyche and the fears, etc., that we have in the real world. And I think that the Matrix films express that just as the Mad Max films did, just as even, I guess, the Star Wars films. In order to make certain psychological journeys, we need these films.
Chad Stahelski has so much experience with wire work, who is a professional kung fu fighter, who has been, an exceptional stuntman for 8-10 years. I mean, he's really been through all of the elements that this picture asks.
First and foremost, I'm Keanu Reeves' stunt double. Also in charge of the training facility to make sure the Hong Kong guys get what they need, kind of liaison between them and the stunt department.
The traveler or just the trust?
Also kind of in charge of the martial arts stunt work, like setting up our rigging, making sure that the stunt aspect of the fight scenes go well. Kind of the assistant stunt coordinator to R.A. R.A. Rondell, he's like the head guy.
Chad is the head of this fight department as far as I'm concerned. I'm out of bounds. I'm a guest on his set.
Chad seems to hit a lot of people. A lot of the people here have a lot of good things to say about him, but he really hits a lot of people.
We've all had a few knee problems. I had like 2 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder surgeries, busted my ankle, busted my hand. A lot of bruises. Mostly on this show, it's a lot of bruises.
Chad works harder than anybody I know. He's the first one in the morning, he's the last one training at night, he's the one training on the weekends, he's the motivator.
My guys are tired. Look at him there. This guy's asleep. This one still doesn't know what job he's on. This one can't remember his name.
He keeps his crew working day in and day out, and it shows in his work.
I just want you to pay attention on the tax department. He's the most rich stuntman in America. The tax department pay attention.
Is it all in good hands with Chad? Good answer.
Yeah, you couldn't be in better hands.
There were more movements in this one particular fight than there are in the whole of the first Matrix. It might actually be double. So that's a good place to start.
It's Keanu fighting 100 versions of Hugo. But the boys have created and choreographed a sequence that is so intricate and so involved.
In the Burly Brawl, you see Neo being more and more challenged so that he has to raise his level of skill to combat the opposite will. Smith, my character, has no resolution, cannot conquer the opposite will, because in that moment there's no understanding of that, of how to do it physically. So he escapes.
What's really cool is that the scene in itself has 3 acts. First act has about 8 Smiths versus Neo. The second act is up around 25, and then the third act is up to 80 Smiths in the park at once. Along the way, we start with stunt doubles and somewhat conservative Hong Kong-style block-offs and quick cuts everywhere. Then as we get to the second act, where there's 25 men, there'll be like a mixture of CG Smiths and head replacements and doubles going on all at the same time. In the third act, where there's up to 80 men, this will be all virtual, all computer graphics, including Neo.
John came to us with storyboards for the Burly Brawl concept at the time, and goes through it with us and says, look, so we've got these shots in Matrix Reloaded that are going to have Keanu doing Kung Fu against Agent Smith. And John goes, so yeah, there's a couple of them. Well, maybe more than a couple, 5, 6, 7. So we start going, well, I guess we'll have to like shoot, lock off the camera and shoot multiple passes. And he goes, no, you're not quite getting it. It's more than 6 or 7. It's kind of 100, maybe 200, maybe 300 in one shot. Oh, okay. Huh. And then he says, yeah, and kind of bullet time as well.
Just like the last film, the brothers have got the support to push for very difficult things.
You don't want to expose the directors to too much risk. It's kind of different with Larry and Andy. Larry and Andy will take risks. And instead of us going, well, we really want to do this, it was more, you guys have got to do this. You've got to work it out. We don't care if you say it's really hard. We want to support you, but you've got to be able to do it.
At least half of the creativity in doing something like that is in planning the fight. So Larry and Andy and Wu Ping worked out the fight. I mean, Wu Ping choreographed it, ran it through Larry and Andy. They gave their additions to it. And then Wu Ping and his guys recorded themselves doing all the moves. And then I cut the fight together.
We didn't pre-plan the photography, and the procedure for that was to figure out, by way of Wu Ping's guys, what amazing feats Neo was going to do, figure out what percentage of that was actually capturable, and or a percentage of capture plus animation extensions, and some was just pure animation.
John managed to get some research funding from Larry and Andy and the studio, and we set off doing a test. 3, 2, 1, action!
We're doing this test August 14th, 15th, and 16th, year 2000. This is our first proof of concept on this idea. We've been running universal capture tests to create the synthetic face and form of Keanu for the last month and a half. Our big goal is by October, November to start having a representation of all these pieces in a virtual environment. These dudes obviously are Wu Ping's mind-blowing martial arts team. They're wearing all these highly reflective balls, and these balls are being read by these cameras up here in a procedure known as motion capture. 120 times a second they are flashing light. It looks like they're constant, but they're not. They're really strobing. And the balls, being super reflective, kick back every time they're being flashed. And we take the data and we begin to calculate where all of the little markers on their bodies are. We have taken the motion of one of the best martial artists in the world, and we have put it inside the form of Neo. So now we have a very capable Keanu Reeves kicking the living shit out of many dudes at once. Everything in the frame is 100% computer generated, the background, all the characters. Our methods completely surround three-dimensionally recording performance and then editing a lot of performances together into a longer performance. All we're really after is extending very difficult actions and viewing that from any angle in a way that just keeps the camera running longer instead of all these brief little cuts.
The park set had to accommodate a large fight where there were going to be several hundred people, I suppose. It's the sort of place where people once had lived and played, and kids grew up in the playground there and had a great time, and then kind of the world had moved on and just left this void.
If you can imagine maybe like a 20, 25-story tenement park, it was like probably twice the size of an average soundstage.
One of the wonderful things is that Owen puts so much detail into every set he builds that it can only make our visual effects look better. It's just really great. And we came in and we took 2,000 stills of the set as the initial pass to help us digitize every little thing from every window to every tree to the playground set. It's pretty much the only way to capture something as lush and detailed as Owen's set.
And we were able to use those same photographs with all the same painting and texture and detail and variation that Owen had put in there, bring it into the digital world, create these completely virtual camera moves that you never even think that wasn't real, because it was sourced from the real set.
It is definitely one of our favorite sets. We go above it, around it, and we travel a lot. It is definitely one of the sets that demanded the most work.
I'm Sister Fury, and this is Fists of Fury.
Let's shoot, man.
Every afternoon for 9 weeks, me and 12 stuntmen on the floor went through a 5.5-minute routine. I believe I had over 500 moves.
Each Smith will attack Neo and perhaps lay 3 punches or 2 punches and a kick on Neo and then be dispatched with. They figured ultimately it was easier for me to just learn each move on the day. I actually got to know the first 10 or 15 Smith's moves, but ultimately on the day they changed anyway. So I really was learning the fight as they would in Hong Kong, which was just on the day.
All the Agent Smith doubles were pretty much auditioned. We auditioned about 50 guys, acrobats, gymnasts, martial art guys, regular stunt guys. Put them through about 4 months of training to mimic the actor Hugo Weaving, as well as learn the fight choreography and develop the skills they're going to need for this.
They have expertise in different areas. Some are acrobats, some are martial artists, some can do performances, you know, that you would only get in a circus.
Are they tough guys? They're tough guys with soft hearts, how's that?
There were Smith lessons where I'd watch them run and I'd watch them walk and then so I kind of gave them a few pointers, but it wasn't more than a couple of lessons really.
When you see the scenes, you gotta remember that's the real Hugo mixed in with like 12 of the best martial arts stunt guys around.
And action.
And he's holding his own pretty well. No computers. No computers, real deal stuff. John Jada takes over and does his multi-passes and composite shots to really amplify the amount of people we have.
I'm totally, absolutely ready for the juggernaut of multi-pass mayhem that is being inflicted upon me by the very well-written prose of the Wachowski brothers. Remember, it's the writers that invite the technological onslaught that you may see.
So right now what we've got here is a motion control setup. It allows us to put multiple Smiths into the scene without having to use the computer graphics technology. So this rig is completely repeatable. Every time the camera goes past, we can get it to do the same move time and time again.
We'd put one Hugo there, film him, and then we'd take the camera back, and then we'd put another Hugo there and we'd film him again. So it looked initially like you would see everyone repeated was Hugo.
By the end of the sequence, there's like 80-odd Agent Smiths.
The complicated thing was working out how we were going to shoot that many Smiths fighting Keanu all at once.
There are certain parts of the sequences that we had to create that we had to map Keanu's face or Hugo's face, and we had to do things with their bodies and their look that are not real.
So the challenge was, how do you generate synthetic humans? And we thought the hardest thing would be generating a human face that had the right expressions. So we built a system that we use multiple high-def cameras, use them to shoot an actor, and then we can reconstruct that actor's facial performance. Every little muscle movement, every mouth movement, eye movement, teeth movement, all of that can be reconstructed so that we can then fly around that with a virtual camera. So we can then stick that onto a live person's body or onto a synthetic body.
The problem with working on actual humans is they're so recognizable. You look at humans every day, you're very unforgiving when you see CG hair or CG face or any of those things.
It would take an animator who was basically the Picasso of his time to actually completely freehand a performance like that.
We basically used those facial performances and we've assigned different performance on every Smith. So we had this whole process of assigning different performances to the different Smiths. So they all do different things.
The bullet time shot in the first movie was a little more practical. You know, the action was shot from a bunch of still cameras. We're sort of recreating, you know, Keanu and recreating Hugo so that we can basically put the camera anywhere and do anything. But the idea was that the camera is always traveling at the same speed, it's just the motion is slowed down.
No frozen motion, that was the mid-90s. We wore different clothes back then.
It's sort of this blend between, you know, use mocap where the mocap works and where the mocap doesn't work, where it's just doing something that's just not capturable or just like superhuman, then that's where the hand animation has to pick up. Dynamic simulation is virtual crash test dummies that you can just smack around and they'll react similar to how a human would react if he was smacked by a bull. You can give it an animation and then hit it with a ball and it'll react to the ball but try and maintain the existing animation that you have on it. In this case, basically everyone who gets hit by a pole was a dynamic simulation. As the shots get more developed, we add more and more Smiths, and once the animation's final, it can get passed to the cloth department.
We worked very closely with modeling, with rigging, the animators, because we took inputs from all of those, and cloth was essentially sort of a hub.
All the clothing that you see is the way we actually get it to look so real is we get a cloth sample for each one of the characters, you know, whether it's a piece of the suit, a piece of Neo's coat, whatever, and we basically put it through this device that shoots it from many different angles, and it gives us an approximation of how a particular material reacts to light and different camera angles. Then we put that into the computer system, and bingo, we get a realistic-looking piece of cloth.
The brothers, they wanted to really have a lot of interaction with Neo's cassock, with his personality, or sort of have a connection with that. Once they were done with shooting, they cleaned them up and then they sent it to us so that we would be able to get a look and feel of the weight of it, as well as how it wrinkled and bent, and as well as try to see how well it fit, and little details like, you know, how many snaps were on there, and you know, how far away the buttons are from the collar. So there was a lot of attention paid to this and Agent Smith's outfit.
Both the animation and the cloth get passed to the color and lighting department, and they're the guys that, you know, render it and make it look so real.
We spend a lot of time developing new image-based lighting techniques. We have the ability of extracting every single light in the set so that it looks completely mathematically represented in our computer graphic scenes.
One of the big things that makes any computer-generated object look the way it looks is the way in which the light in an environment plays on it.
If we're ever adding a computer-generated component, we have to be able to know exactly how Bill set his lights. So we use the chrome ball that's over there to tell us where everything was and how bright it was.
Because it's a sphere and because it's chromed or mirrored, it actually reflects the entire environment. So by taking a picture of a chrome ball, you've actually taken a picture of effectively the entire environment. What it's letting us do in one image is measure the color of the environment as seen from any given point. We now have a record, a measurement of the light, of the color and the intensity of the light coming into the point where the chrome ball is.
I would think that the methodology of creating a master content through all those means and then post-photographing it and editing it and all of that stuff, yeah, I think that will become common.
Animation's a difficult thing. We had a great animation team working on the Burly Brawl, and we had a ton of motion capture, but it's still hard to get them nuances in. I think it's going to be quite a while before people can truly see character animations being completely perfect.
We're so accustomed to seeing fights made editorially, where you see a cut to a guy throw a punch, and cut to a reaction, and cut back to a wide shot, and over the shoulder beat. It's all done through the editorial process, and these sequences are not done that way. There are no cuts. The camera is showing you what it wants you to see while it keeps on moving, and it's just a whole new way of seeing something occur.
Hi, this is John Jada. What we're going to be looking at now is the anatomy of a Burly Brawl shot. We like to call it the drop-down shot.
In the year 2000, Steve Skrosh drew these boards to illustrate the beginning of what we would consider the final act in this three-act fight. We begin in the God's eye view, and we spiral down to something that graphically emulated a hurricane. Originally, the hurricane idea was not as evident. Wu Ping and us on stage realized that the fight could potentially be interesting if it had the master revolving sort of circle around Neo. And what you're seeing here is the capture for Neo and his immediate adversaries. These would be sophisticated choreographed pieces that Wu Ping and the Hong Kong team would work out. There would be like hundreds of these captures to choose from, creating a vast library, which could be erector-setted, if you will, by the layout team with the computer graphics side of this. The UCAP process is incredible when it's being fully realized, as we'll see later on the Super Punch. The part of the process that involves getting the expression performance is perhaps the most complex, in which the actor needs to, in a somewhat restrained situation, provide an emotional sort of facial expression, which is captured and processed and assigned on an individual basis. For some time, we were speculating whether we wanted to try any scenes with articulate speech in close-up shots with CG humans. And there were discussions that I was having with Larry and Andy about possibly taking the shot where Smith says more and making that fully virtual. But, you know, as applied strictly for action beats, it was not necessary to apply articulate speech. However, the technology is there. So layer one, primary action, would be Keanu Reeves and at times Chad confronting the 8 stuntmen. There is a circle around this circle, which will contain many more men, that will be attempting to gain access to the fight. With the virtual depiction of a fight like this, there is no reason why not to have absolute contact. In the case of this scene, the whole point is that you can actually show the impact in its full effect. So we have the fellas dressed in body armor underneath their mocap suits so that Keanu or Chad can smash them with full force. Okay, so here we are beginning to create the preliminary versions of the virtual set. We're doing this so that we have a much better idea of scale. If we take a look at this scene, we can see how men are coming into and out of this fight from a layer just beyond the immediate foreground circle. Some hits could be the product of a Hugo weaving running entry, a stuntman
hit and collision, and then an animated extension because the Smith needed to travel quite a distance. There was a whole slew of terms from home runs to grounders and line drives that the bros would apply so we would understand the sort of severity of the hit and the distance of the hit. At this point, you can see the design of the vortex starting to come into play. It was considered many ways almost a yin-yang type of graphic in that there would be equal numbers coming from either side and creating the type of symmetry that the Wachowski brothers love and apply so much in many of their frames. Based on our original test in 2000, we were going to have guys jumping from windows and going through windows. The other attribute about the test, which is fascinating, which we did not pursue as much, was a much more hyperactive camera that was at times quite more attached to Neo's periphery. Here is the final version at long last. This is a good shot for illustrating the whole process. In terms of a wide to macro view of the process, this one pretty much shows you the whole thing.